Hey Candace, how are you? I am waiting on Facebook to let me do what I'm supposed to be doing. It's kind of moving super slow. Let's see. One second. Trying to log people in. So while I get this technical stuff worked out, I want to say thank you for joining me. It's day 4 of our conference, week 1. And I think that this week we've touched on a lot of things that raise even more questions for people. I know in watching some of it, I've noticed that it raised some additional questions for myself. So give me a second. I'm on my phone and on the computer trying to send the invite for everyone else to join. And Facebook is once again giving me issues. So nevertheless, we're going to have this get underway as soon as possible. So that they can join. We're going to be joined today by our keynote speaker as well as our therapist that we featured this week. So as a prepare to log in, I just want to make sure. There you go, Stacy. And I'm going to try to add you here right now. Actually, Stacy, if you click on, there's a button that says request. I'm going to allow you to request to join so that you can join us via video. And I'm all right. So, Stacy, there should be a button for you to be able to request to join at the bottom of your screen. Just you can comment if you see it. Janae, I'm not sure if you know how to do it, but there should be a request button at the bottom so that you can request to join via video so we can see your faces as well. But the fact that you're in the comments is amazing, and you can help out there. I'll just continue to talk. It looks like a picture-in-picture at the bottom on my screen. And I believe I've set it where it allows your viewers to request to join as a guest in your broadcast. So just let me know if that doesn't work for you. But, okay. So where's my request? All right. Just waiting on the request to come through. This is strange. It worked the last time I did this. Hit the green and white button. I don't even have it. I don't have a green and white button, Candace. It's strange. You can't hear me? Oh, that brightened my face up. That wasn't not needed though. This is super strange. Here we are. So very weird. Okay, well, since everyone can hear me, I first want to say thank you guys for joining, and I want to address some of the questions that came up, and until I figure out how to get everybody in here, you would think it's just a button and a button, but that's not working. So very strange situation going on here, and I apologize for any confusion this may be causing. But one of the questions that was raised in our day 2 of this week was how do you tell your therapist that you're having suicidal thoughts? So I know for a lot of people there is a bit of fear that if I tell my therapist that I am considering suicide, that I'm having suicidal thoughts, that this could potentially trigger them to want to commit me or put me on medication or something that will take away all my freedoms and restrict me from going about my everyday life. So Janae, if you could address that in the comments as we just kind of figure out all the technical stuff that's going on here. I think it's important that we talk to people about that. And just let me know if you got it. Send me something. I don't know why this won't allow me to do what I need to do. Okay. So I'm still trying to work through why I can't add you guys in here. I don't have that button. Let me see. Once again, still working through the technical difficulties. Not sure why it won't allow me to add anyone to this group. Super awkward. One second, everyone. It's not allowing me to add the people into the live broadcast. So I am going to attempt to go out and go back in one more time, and hopefully I can get this to work. It's worked every other time I've tried it. So just to reiterate what Janae just said, and maybe this is just how we do this from now on, it's not the goal of your therapist to put a client in the hospital. So as she said, you can't state that you're able, if you can't demonstrate that you're able to keep yourself and others safe, then treatment might be brought up. So there is something to be said about just being honest about where you are in that your therapist isn't going to try to, and that's not what they want to do. So the fear of that happening should diminish with that thought in mind. So I'm going to get out and get back in, and hopefully we can figure out why Facebook is not allowing me to tag people into this call so you guys can see their faces as well. So be right back. Be looking for the notification, okay, you guys? Who's joined? Stacy, I'm. You say you're here, so I'm waiting on it to notify me so I can try to add you, or you can send me a request to join. You see that button? This is making me crazy. Okay. Hey, Candace. Hey, Lee. I'm just waiting to see if I can somehow start to. I don't know. So I'm waiting on Janae and Stacy to get back in. Hi, Karina. So one of the first questions we asked was, how do you tell your therapist that you are having suicidal thoughts or that you're suicidal? And in the previous live, Ms. Janae Tidwell was basically saying that being honest, you just have to be honest about that, because if you aren't honest, then what you run into is creating a space where you're not safe. And if you are in jeopardy of harming your therapist, and your therapist support you for something that you don't express to them. And as she stated, that the ultimate goal for any therapist is not to put their patient in the hospital. That's not their goal. Their goal is for you to everybody back in so they can view and comment. But the goal is for everyone to thrive and to progress. In that prior video, if you have a therapist, if you anticipate having, then you probably need to fire that therapist, because they're not giving you everything you need. So, that's something to have a day of the week so far. Go ahead and lodge your questions here in the live, and then hopefully they join, or as they're able to see these. This is really frustrating. Hi, Janae. Stacy back in. Um, see if you can request to join me. All right, so it's not letting me accept requests for friends to join. I've done this several times before, not sure why it's not working today. One of the things that another question or topic that came up in some of the feedback was regarding race. And that as a Black woman, she looks for a certain thing in her therapist, in a trust that she needs in a therapist, and she equated that to a hairdresser, an OBGYN. For me, like a dentist, not necessarily as a Black woman, but there's certain things that I need my dentist to understand. And you don't want the one that's gonna go so hard in your mouth that you walk out in pain from a cleaning. So, with that being said, the question is raised: should race be considered when finding or seeking a therapist? And I'll let Janae answer in the comments, and I'll just kind of talk through my own thought process on this. So I equate that to the fact that when I'm emoting, when I'm discussing, me feel a certain way, hurts my feelings, makes me feel good, or in a situation where I might feel isolated, culture has its norms. Every culture, even families, you have your traditions. And if you want to express to someone that, I feel like I'm not a part of this group of people, or I'm made to feel a certain way, it might be something similar to a biracial child not feeling like they fit in with one race or the other. There's no button to join now. So it must be the only option to do that must be via the mobile. And on the mobile, I couldn't allow you to join. So I find that interesting. But we'll get that worked out for, if not tomorrow, for next week, so that we can make sure that everyone's able to see your faces and you can respond timely, Janae. But for me, something as simple as, I don't like to eat black eyed peas on New Year's Day, but my family makes me feel like I'm less than or not a part of the group when I do that. In some cultures, that won't make any sense. In mine, it does. So that's why I think race is important, really, because you want the same person to be of the same color, but depending on what it is, you want someone that can relate to that fact. If I'm going because I can't, because of this of discrimination, or not being able to be myself culturally within a company, I think that if it's just, I need to learn how to work harder, set goals, make plans and things like that, that's different from, I feel like I'm oppressed, I feel like I am discriminated against. So that's my 2 cents on it, and I'd love for Janae to write hers out in the comments in regard to that. One of the things that stood out to me in this, and yesterday I expressed it on the video, we talked about abundance, and that's not something you often hear. And at different stages in your healing process, abundance might look different. So, Stacy, I'd like to be able to address that. Like, what does abundance look like for you in this process as you move forward in this process? We all heard your testimony, and so many of us, one, are floored at what you've gone through and how you've persevered and taken ownership of what you needed to do. Is, what does abundance look like for you? When we talk about abundant life, as Christians, we talk about the faith that goes behind, but outside of material things and wealth, what would an abundant life after going through this process look like? That'd be something I'd be interested in hearing about. Candace, specifically, what do you want information on? I see your comment that says my bill. So obviously, depending on where you are and what you need and what you're trying to cope with or heal from, those coping skills may be different. So if you could be a little more specific in your comment, I think we might be able to address that here more effectively. So let's see. Something else and hearing me okay. It's low on my phone here, and so I can see what's happening. There's been a lot in the news recently, and honestly, like I said, I didn't want to talk about it, but when we talk about healing from trauma, so we've heard about the young man, and I don't want to mispronounce his name, therefore I won't say it, but we heard about the young man that went for a jog in his neighborhood, and because he looked in the window of a newly built home or something like that, and the stories kind of run together at this shotgun. We're dealing with COVID, and you can turn on the news and hear in one moment, I want to say the number is close to 70,000 people have passed away from COVID here in the last month or so. Not month, but the last several months. We're in May, very beginning of May. So when you think about that, from one virus in 5 months, we've lost close to 70,000 people. There's another young African-American man killed, unarmed African-American man. Let me put it that way. But just overall, you turn on the news and you hear stories that are traumatic for a family. But how does that trauma impact us? So Janae, one of the things that I would love to hear from you in regard to is what do you do things happening around you that aren't necessarily direct impacting you? So I hope that question. And again, I don't know, so I'm gonna check and give them up. Okay. That are traumatic, that trauma impacted Janae. So yeah, that's one of the things that I'd like for you to address right now. And I'm trying to figure out how to do this and mute my phone, obviously. Yes. So hopefully you guys are seeing Janae's, because I think you can read them, but that's one of the things that's been bothering me. Stacy's comment about abundance to answer my question. Life evolving in ways that help me and that serve me and help me to love myself so that I can in turn benefit my offspring and legacy in all the other ways, such as finances, health, and I have a healthy mind and heart and lens with which to view my life and live from that place. Everything else comes together, and that's abundance to me. Um, I think that's beautifully written, Stacey. I couldn't have said it better myself. And hear people speak of abundance, living a life of abundance after trauma. So if they hear your story, do they offer that to you um, in a way that makes you do that? Addressing Candace, Danae, she's saying that she has suicidal feelings and severe anxiety often. Her caseworker and therapist encourage her to do as many coping skills as she can before reaching out for crisis. She's been out of the hospital. I don't know if that helps you get more, but for her, it's, the whole uh, and developed a number of coping mechanisms and tools over the last 20 some odd years. But I found that I also have to change them. I have to find the old ones don't work in the new situation. Um, whew. Through emotions for your improvement. So often we are convinced, told we've got to get out of our feelings and not address our head, especially when it's in reaction to or an emotion from something else. So finding a way to emote in a healthy place, that again speaks to that safe place, right, Janae? Wow. Okay. In comments, I'm just kind of looking at things, and energy doesn't die; it just transfers to another type of energy. Um, so that's like, so often we talk about anger, and a lot of times you get frustration out when you go to the gym, when you box, when you run. For me, it was running. I can remember this particular day. I was really, really angry about something, really upset, and you know what felt like my blood boiling. And I went for a run, and it was the fastest, longest run I'd ever done. I think it was like a 9 minute pace for a whole 69 minutes, and I've never done that. Had never done that before, and I finished relieved and calm and able to take a deep breath. But yeah, that's where I put that energy. That's true, Stacey. You did speak about your brother on Monday on the news and everywhere else. I imagine can be extremely triggering. And how do you cope with that? Like, what do you do? When how do you separate from this young man that just lost his life? Yeah, different kinds of attacks. I definitely feel that. Like, I've experienced that. I have worked through that and then gone back again and had to figure out how to work through it a second time. So I surely understand what that feels like. And so I think you guys have we have a good conversation going on in the comments. And I hate to have to read it out to you guys like this. So it'd be great if you had picture in picture, but I got to figure out why it's not working out either on the computer or on the phone. But there is a great conversation going on in this. Um, Candace, does that help you when we talk about the coping skills and, having to adjust and do more of them or change them and change what we do? I hope it does. But if not, if you want some more specifics, just well, my directed at Candace more so just because she was talking about coping skills. But Stacey, I did ask, how do you separate what's going on in the news right now from your brother so that you aren't overwhelmed with the emotion of both? Because I imagine they affect you differently, but processing and still processing and going back to the place you were when your brother was taken to now seeing this young man's life taken of it, and it's circulating on the news, and that's yet another topic that they're beating to death on this 24-hour news cycle. How do you separate the two? Do you compartmentalize that and try to process each as its own thing? um, it's hard when we get hit from many different places. Trauma on trauma means you must have multiple ways of transferring that energy. So, do you recommend compartmentalizing, Janae? I know that that's something that I've used as a tool to kind of get through the day and manage difficult tasks. So, is that something you can help us with a little bit? Is compartmentalizing okay to do, or do you think that it is prolonging the inevitable of pain or a breakdown or something to that effect? Can you guys still hear me? Wow. Okay. So the fact that I do take the not boxes, I have to. I want to be yeah, and that's why I use the term buckets instead to me, when you put some in the box, you are storing it away for a later day. And I don't know if anybody has been to the webpage in a while, but on that page, I wrote a blog about cleaning out my storage unit these last few weeks, and I had to pack out. I became overwhelmed. I put so much in the way. I didn't understand the emotion of what I was doing. So yeah, so keeping it there forever. My things were in storage for 48 months, and I know that because I tallied it up, calculated how much I spent on it. And I think if we refer I refer to my compartmentalization as a bucket, because buckets don't have lids, meaning it's not sealed, and I can keep filling that bucket if I want to, but eventually it's all going to pour out. To drain one, I have to pour some stuff out, meaning I'll have to deal with whatever's in that bucket at that point in time. Let me read Stacy's comment. Um, Compartmentalization, not disassociating, but moving things to a place where you can handle each one at a time. Wow. Does anyone, Janae or Stacy, do y'all want to talk about disassociating? Because I don't think people really understand the difference. Really, I don't think people really know the disassociation. we talk about it in relationships, but the ability to distance from the trauma, and what that does to us mentally. Anybody want to elaborate on that? Because that is way far left for me. So, I'm hoping that people follow and understand, and this is helpful. Going to I'll download this and loop the two together and repost as one video. Um, yes, Stacy, we talked about your file cabinet, which makes sense. You stuff it so full. I remember that analogy. You stuff it so full that and all the other stuff falls out, and you got to do something with it. Is that healthy, Janae? To actually have like a tangible item that we thing to do? Um, compartmentalization and disassociation. This is a great dialogue, by the way. It's raising more questions for me to address for myself. And yeah, the difference between the compartmentalization is something I think will be helpful for a lot of people, and disconnect from reality. Does that answer your question, Lee? Like, so for example, Janae, I guess I need to be transparent here. Last year, I went to the doctor for my regular annual checkup, and they found some things they didn't like, and they wanted all these procedures that I had to do. And at first, because there was so much other stuff, as we talk about trauma, piling on top of each other, and trauma just commingling and weighing on you. I had so much go on that by the middle of last year, this last piece of information that I had, they found some abnormal cells, and I was going to have to go through all of these procedures to get it resolved. There was a 4-month span where I said, I'm not going to worry about it right now. And obviously that's a bad idea when you're talking about abnormal cells in your body, to just not address something like that. But I went 4 months, and every comment to follow up, I ignored it because they called me, and then I rescheduled and rescheduled and rescheduled. So for compartmentalizing, I think I know the answer, but I'm gonna let you answer as the expert. It's a good theory, but you can't just keep stuffing and expect to keep going forward. And yeah, all of these bins have a whatever the container is that you are using. It only has. We like to think our brains can handle everything, but it really can't. And you can't ignore everything. You can't pretend everything is okay for an extended period of time and everything be okay. So that was my thing. When you say you lose track of time, Candace, what do you mean? The files fall out. You have the job paper, and you go crazy because you were hiding all that trauma and trying to look normal. And when you are educated that okay is a myth. Like, okay, not so much, but no one knows what okay looks like. You know, what over me for your intellectual, you that people remember my diagnosis of postpartum being told that there was no reason I should be depressed because I had 2 degrees from a great um therefore there was no reason to have postpartum depression because I had it for my kid. Didn't mean anything when I was in that therapist's office. So that degree didn't keep me mentally stable. In fact, I'll say graduating from college and not having something to distract me anymore because work wasn't working anymore to keep work wasn't enough to distract me because it was every day this is what you do kind of stuff. So yeah, I think if I'll just say this, losing just about everything the last 3 years forced me to ignore what okay was going to look like and deal with the things that were staring me in the face. um Something you have to keep, meaning that you have worked through them. Some things you have to keep, meaning that you have worked through them, and things you have to shred, process through it, and let it go. That is great. Some things you have to shred. Um, can that be something that you list of stuff, Janae, that you can? Oh, this should be shred. So in any like a generic, these types of things should be let go, and these types of things should be, stored so that you can work through them. Um, yeah, it is. And, that was my life for, let's see, that was 2007. So for 7 years, trying to keep up the appearance that I was okay because I should be. Reason on the face of it to be depressed or to deal with anxiety. I started dealing with teen. What did I have to be anxious for? And I hear that when you tell parents that their kids are stressed. I made a post the other day, to check on our kids because they're dealing with COVID too. They're dealing with these changes too. They're a mom teaching them, and mom is not a teacher, will punish me more so than getting my assignments done. They're dealing with stress. There are a few people saying, well, what does a kid have to be stressed over? A lot. They don't have all the information that we have in order to do those things. Um, Mental health have nothing to do with each other. I'm gonna say that. Is it true that Einstein couldn't tie his shoes? I've heard that a million times. I've never actually fact checked it, but that speaks to something. Um, I want to read this out loud because I just asked this question of how do we determine what needs to be shredded and let go and what needs to be stored. Things to let go, things that you, if you bring them to mind, things that keep you in a negative place, things that will keep you from your life or your family. So is it safe to say things that are impacting me that I can't change? And I spend a lot of time trying to change, or I allow those things to affect me mentally and emotionally. That would be something I should let go of, correct? Um, Yeah. So yeah, that's some people, if you think of it that way, what do I need to shred and what's the criteria for a shred versus a store? So these are all things we need to elaborate on, and maybe we can get Janae to help us put this into a written format just as a guide to post for people that come to the page, because in all honesty there are a lot of but it's important. And I know, oh, okay, so we do know that Einstein had mental health. He was I mean, so clearly that doesn't prevent you from becoming mentally. That one of the things that is you to do is have these conversations, but also that we having these conversations, people have things that we can. Here's a list of things that you should probably consider letting go. Knowing that compartmentalization is okay. Sometimes I've had therapists that are like, no, we need to talk about this to push through. And yeah, I don't feel like pushing through that right now. I've told my therapist I don't want to talk about that yet. And, I had some good therapists to it, but I've had some that pushed me and pushed me. And yeah, sorry, Janae. I just, I can share all the memes and inspirational quotes and scripture in the world, but the reality is people need to have something to reference. And it's hard to come by. And even when we talk about mental health help and finding professionals and counselors and things like that, the first thing people say is, I can't afford to do that right now. um I've been there. I quit therapy to come out of my pocket for $100 every 2 weeks for a session. And it, you know, it could have broken me. And Janae said this last year at our conference, and I took it to heart when I went to look for my therapist this year. For yourself to get therapy is not going to help you move forward in that process, because it's about to deal with financial stresses is a lot. Financial stresses can cause you to go from being okay to insane really quickly, because not knowing where you're going to live, not knowing how to feed your family, how do you recover from that? Especially if you've spent it just trying to get help. You're basically fighting a losing battle, in my opinion. Um, we will buy the ebook. Yes, be writing a book. Maybe we can write it together. But and do the work. Otherwise, you know what? That is from all therapy. Therapy, if done incorrectly, if not done thoughtfully, if you are not ready, if you don't do the work yourself, can be traumatic. Just as traumatic as the thing you were going. We are at 7:58, and I appreciate Stacy and Janae getting on. I'm going to work out the kinks of this Facebook Live thing. My hope is that tomorrow we can do even if it's just a 40-minute Zoom call. I'll send out the invite to get on Zoom and see each other's faces. I want this to be somewhat of a happy hour and fun time to discuss, but I'm also to build some questions and build the things, to talk to people and understand what, for instance, Candace is really and truly looking for help outside of her therapist, because um, she's getting the cliche. She's been in therapy. I can remember going to this new one and saying, listen, I've been here before. I've dealt with therapy. You're going to have to give me more than what you would give somebody else. I don't want your platitudes. I don't want your how does this make you feel type therapy. You're gonna have to talk to me. We're gonna have to talk through some stuff, and I'm gonna talk crazy to you at sometimes, but I need you to keep me in line and keep me focused on what I need to do to make this work. So that's why I want to continue to have these live conversations. So today's is with our keynote and our therapist for the week throughout the rest. But luckily, Stacy has, so she's dealt with this, personally, but also professionally. So lots of information from this one conversation and lots of things to sort through and talk about and, elaborate on for another conversation, which I like. Like I said, I'm going to perfect this and make this work, even if it's on. Who knows, if we need to go longer, we'll do that too. But again, tonight we talked about the importance of race in seeking a therapist. That was on the first pushing together so that there'll be one video. But we talked about should race be considered when seeking a therapist? And that's obviously a choice you have to make. What is going to make you feel the most comfortable? Who is this person going to be relatable to your situation? Can they help you process emotions from certain things? So that's something to definitely keep in mind. We talked about how do you tell your therapist that you're having suicidal thoughts, something that away from, but as Janae facility, the goal is to get you the help, teach you how to cope with that and how to get to a place where you aren't having those thoughts anymore. And I think that's the goal of anybody that's seeking therapy and any therapist that's going to treat someone that says I have suicidal thoughts, which is, again, they can't help you with that if you don't talk about it. That speaks to trusting your therapist. I talked about that for 11 minutes and 36 seconds. Is out there, and the event is on the page, and it's within the Cause Wellness virtual check-in group. Those things are the things she mentioned in that video are very important. As a therapist, this is a therapist telling you what to so yeah, be honest about those suicidal thoughts and talk about them. Again, I went to my therapist this time and said, hey, I'm having suicide, don't need medication, I'm not necessarily to go in a hospital, but I'll let you know when I am. But I'm having them, and I need you to help me get through it. I asked Stacy what an abundant life would look like for her, and that is in the comments, and it was beautifully written, and I don't want to repeat it and misspeak because, in all honesty, the high point of it wasn't a material abundance she was seeking. So yes, we want to be financially stable. We want to leave a legacy, to be able to live comfortably, but in the grand scheme, the mark we leave, the light we shine while we're here. So check out Stacy's comment about abundant life, where the TV is showing us nothing but negativity and trauma, and how do we sort through that? We talked a lot about compartmentalization, and no matter what your emotions into, and through the things that you should be working through, and you need to be letting go of things that need to be let go of. So I'm going to recap this call, by the way, and make a post about it because I think it's important. And also I want to memorialize it so we can come back to this, and hopefully on happy hour tomorrow, if everybody's available, we can join. But if not, we will record so you all can see. And Janae reiterates, as she should, and as I'm going to say again, be honest about your suicidal thoughts, suicidal ideations. Make sure you're honest about that. There's no point in you don't lie to them. It's no point. I'm going to say that one more time for the people in the back. There's no point in going to a therapist if you're going to lie. So with that, I think, yes, I'm really working through these broadcast issues every night this week. Something has slowed down, and I'm having a feeling that it's just the peak time to be on the internet for everybody. So it's just draining bandwidth. So now 4 o'clock, maybe even noon, so that it's not as bad. Do these live broadcasts once I get that whole feature work, a couple test runs through the weekend. Thank you, Stacy. I really appreciate the encouragement because, as I said, I deal with anxiety, and 4 minutes late for me is too late, and I feel like I'm failing somehow by doing that. So I definitely appreciate you telling me not to worry about that, and the encourage that to everyone that's watching, everyone that's been a part of Pause. What I thought I would be doing. I am I, this is where God wants me to play. I'm just talking. I go out and hit Janae up so we can get started on this general self-care. So thank you all for joining. I'll let you get back to your lives and your families. Stay safe, stay well, stay out of the streets because cases have gone up. And I'm going to be honest, I understand that right now we are going through, as a country, a very traumatic time. As a globe, we are going through a very, do they not, I mean, it's not possible for me to believe that they don't ever have racist, but they happen to us, and then they get televised, and there's all these conversations about it. So one that COVID hit is turn my television off. I haven't watched CNN, MSNBC. I haven't really watched the local news since we've been stuck in the house since March, because those things compile with just life in and of itself. So I am asking everyone if it's a step away just for a day or two. We will keep all of the families of those that have been lost, murdered, in our prayers, and I will see you guys tomorrow at 5:30. Again, thank you so much for it. Bye, everybody. The little hand is my daughter.